Perfect. There we go. All right, welcome. My name is Will Moss. I am the CEO of HBCU Connect and a partner with Trabajamos. I'm here to present the Microsoft Data Platform and Growth Team. We want to welcome all of our candidates this evening. This is a special targeted diversity recruitment event, specifically targeting Latinx and diverse professionals. So we want to welcome you. For those of you that are just now joining us, please, you can actually turn off your video feed for now, and then also make sure you stay on mute during the presentation, because we want to focus our attention on the video and the audio coming from the Microsoft team that will be presenting this evening, sharing their opportunities with you. So we thank you guys for joining us, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, so just a little bit of background. This is a virtual hiring event, obviously, with the Data Platform and Growth Team within Microsoft and my organization, HBCU Connect and Trabajamos, which is a special effort with our partnership with Microsoft to not only reach diverse candidates and historically African-American candidates and professionals from our network, but also to expand that and offer opportunities to the larger Latinx professional community. So that brings us to our event this evening. And so the first thing I would like to do to set the stage and set expectations for the event is I would like to run through the agenda. But before I do that, make sure to take advantage of the chat. So while you can't use your audio or video during the event, because we want to minimize any distractions, you can utilize the chat to ask questions to the Microsoft Data Platform and Growth Team. So if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, if you'd like to drop your LinkedIn profile, a little bit about your background in the chat from a networking perspective, feel free to do that. All right, so quickly go over the event agenda. First thing I'm going to do is going to give a brief welcome about myself, about our relationship with Microsoft, about the launch of Trabajamos and what brings us to this event this evening. Then I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, who is Janet Peterson, VP of Engineering on the Dpg team. Then I'm going to introduce our panelists who have graciously offered to share their experiences, share their insight, and talk about the opportunities as well on the different teams that they work on. So we'll meet the team, give you a little bit of context so that you can then ask some appropriate questions once you know who you're speaking to. And then also we're going to go into a panel discussion where I have prepared some sort of canned questions on behalf of US candidates. So I put my candidate hat on, and I'm going to ask those questions to the panel to help you get a better idea of what it's like to work at Microsoft, what types of opportunities are available, and the Microsoft culture, and then specifically the Data Platform and Growth Team. So we're going to go through that panel discussion, but then also I'm going to open it up for live Q&A. So I want you guys to get used to leveraging the chat here within Microsoft Teams. So like I said, if you want to drop your LinkedIn profile, network a little bit, introduce yourself in the chat, please do so. But once we get to that live Q&A, you will be able to drop questions in the chat, and then I will read off some of those questions to the Microsoft panelists and the Microsoft team. And then I'll leave a few minutes left at the end of the event to talk about next steps if you would like to potentially land an interview with the Microsoft Data Platform and Growth Team. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Quick introduction of myself. Like I said, my name is Will Moss. I'm the CEO and founder of a social networking site called HBCU Connect. A lot of you guys may have just now heard of us for the first time. A lot of you may have attended some of our previous Latinx specific events, and you got an invite to this event, so you may be familiar with us. But if you're not familiar with us, my organization is a connection point between opportunities and you all as talented, diverse professionals. So our relationship with Microsoft started probably 8 or 9 years ago, where initially, Microsoft came to us and they were posting jobs on our website, and we were moving the needle and driving traffic to Microsoft's job site. But one of the senior leaders in HR came to me and said, "Hey, Will, this is great. We see we're moving the needle on applications to Microsoft.com and our careers. But what we really want to do is we want to make sure that your candidates get a good chance and a good opportunity to meet with our hiring managers and our recruiters, and they get interviews and they get hired. So what can you do?" So they put the ball in our court, and we said, you know what, we'll do exactly what you're asking for, and we will create an event format and you invite your hiring managers, you bring some recruiters, and then I'm going to make a special ask that you also bring some diverse professionals from your teams that can represent Microsoft and talk about what it's like at Microsoft, or what is life like at Microsoft from a diverse perspective as well. And then what I'll do is I'll go out and have my team connect with diverse professionals to invite them to the event. So we started doing events, like I said, about 7 or 8 years ago. We've been doing events every year within Microsoft, with different teams within Microsoft, up until, fast forward to 2020, COVID-19 hit. And, we had a lot of events scheduled on the books, in-person events scheduled on the books last year. But kudos to Microsoft. Instead of canceling those events, they switched over to utilize Microsoft Teams to host the events virtually. And coincidentally, the first team from Microsoft that was with that virtual event was the Microsoft Teams group, who was hiring software engineers and program managers. So fast forward to where we are today, Microsoft has continued to offer opportunities to diverse professionals within our network. So you are in the right place, because lots of folks have been hired from these events. So this is not just a branding opportunity. Like if you go to a career fair and you have your resume, you stand in line and you talk to someone, and then after that, you never hear anything. This is a little bit different. This is a special niche. As you can see, there's only 77 people in the room with you right now. You all have a special opportunity to meet with some of the team members that are specifically hiring for certain opportunities within a certain group within Microsoft, the Dpg group, which you're going to learn about. So this is a special opportunity for you to get your resume in front of them, for you to network, ask questions, get to know Microsoft, and then hopefully land an interview, and then hopefully some of you get hired from this event. So this is an intentional event. That is the opportunity. So you're in a great place to take advantage of it. All right. So with that, welcome. I'd like to remind everyone, please do stay on mute. So if you just logged in, please stay on mute, and also keep your video off so we can focus on the video from the Microsoft Dpg team. But with that being said, let me go ahead and introduce our keynote speaker from the Data Platform and Growth team for Trabajamos event. And our keynote speaker is Janet Peterson, VP of Engineering, Viva Employee Experience. So Janet, if you're ready.
Thank you very much, Will. Welcome everybody to this really awesome event. I'm very excited to be meeting with you, with the Trabajamos group, and really excited to work with you on opportunities at Microsoft. A little bit about myself. I'm the VP of Engineering for part of a new product line called Viva Employee Experiences. I actually joined this organization in May. It's one of the teams we'll be talking about later, and one of the teams that we are hiring into. It's a brand new product that's being launched actually next week, so very cool. So we're building a lot of very exciting innovation focused on how do we engage and really help employees find information, find people, really connect well, and have a delightful time in their workplace. A little bit about myself. I come from Southern California, spent most of my young life down there, down in Carlsbad. I just recently moved to the Seattle area, so I joined Microsoft a year and a half ago. I actually joined right in the beginning of COVID. I joined the first week that they sent Microsoft home, so we can definitely answer questions about what does it mean to be working out of home offices right now. My background is in computer science, so I have a degree in computer science, and I've spent the last 28 years working at software companies. The majority of that, so about 2/3 of that, have been in software development organizations, so building products, starting way back when in the world of middleware, which is probably not a term that most people have heard of, and then quickly moving into SaaS and now cloud. I spent the last 10 years prior to joining Microsoft at SuccessFactors, which is an SAP company focusing on HR software. I've also spent about 1/3 of my time working with the field and doing training and consulting with customers as well as customer support. So I found that was an incredibly valuable experience to really help us build better software. I did that both at CubeTree, where I was Director of Customer Success for a small startup company. They were actually acquired by SuccessFactors. That's how I ended up at SuccessFactors. I also did that early on in my career as an individual contributor. So doing training classes and answering calls from customers as they tried to build software. And I think that wraps it up about me. So let's talk a bit about Microsoft. So hopefully everybody have heard Microsoft's mission, and our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And we take this incredibly seriously. This is not a tagline that goes on marketing material. It is something that we live in our values every single day. And we do that by really focusing on innovation. So how do we continue moving technology and helping people in the world? We focus on diversity and inclusion. How do we make sure that we are listening to all employees as well as all customers, and that we are representing folks and we bring in diverse voices into all those conversations? We focus on corporate responsibility, making sure that we are doing the right things, that we are ethical and trustworthy. And as I said, we take this incredibly seriously. To quote Satya from a recent event, we, Microsoft, collectively are successful when the world around us is successful. And that's very, very core to Microsoft's value. As a recent addition to Microsoft in the last year and a half, I can tell you I see this all the time. It is very key to how we work on a daily basis. It is key to how do we make sure that all voices are heard in meetings. It is key to how we engage with customers to make sure that they both feel included in the conversations about what we build, but also that we have very strong trust with them. So when we look at our values, we have 3 core values, and I love that Microsoft has 3 and not 10, but really the 3 ones, the incredibly important ones. The first one is respect. We want to recognize that the thoughts, feelings, and backgrounds of others are just important as our own. And we talk about this when we talk about being inclusive. We are incredibly focused on, when we meet inside of Microsoft, making sure that all voices are heard. We are also focused on that with customers. We want to make sure as we build products that we are bringing in feedback from global companies, from countries around the world, and from diverse parts of diverse groups. By doing this, we can really build, quite frankly, better products and really create a culture that, quite frankly, I find is really incredible. Next is integrity. We are honest, ethical, and trustworthy. That sounds really simple, but there's a lot of complexity in that when you talk about technology these days. When you think about Microsoft's products, people, businesses, they all have them. Businesses, schools, government, it's everywhere, right? And it's incredibly important data that are sitting in those systems, right? It's in email, it's in Teams, it's about the goals of the company, it's about private communications. And so we take this incredibly seriously to make sure that we create an environment where our customers and our employees have a very strong trust in Microsoft, both as far as what we build as a product and also who we are as a company. And then lastly, we want to focus on accountability. We accept full responsibility for our decisions, actions, and results. End stop. And we look at this mission and value across all of Microsoft, right? And so when you look at Microsoft, large company, huge number of different areas, but we take this to heart in every single aspect. In our engineering organizations, in our technology and research, business functions, finance, HR, marketing, these values and this mission permeate through the whole organization. So lastly, when we think about Microsoft, right, we really want to look at our worldview as we think about technology. So computing is being embedded in our world. It's every place and everywhere. I'm probably giving my age away when I say this, but when I started working out of college, the World Wide Web was 4 years old. Computing was on personal computers occasionally. It was on big mainframes and VAXs and more recently Unix boxes at that time, but it really was very narrowly focused. It was focused on core business, but it was not, it was not in your daily life. Move forward to 2021, and I mean, everybody has personal devices. Technology is in my kitchen. Technology is in my car. Technology is absolutely everywhere. And so as we look at this, we look at this era of intelligent cloud. We are doing a huge amount in the cloud, and a lot of it is how do we learn about what people like? How do we drive cars, right? Intelligence, a huge amount of AI and machine learning going on. And then we combine it with this intelligent edge. Edge being the devices, edge being the cars, edge being HoloLens, edge being all of these areas that are then receiving information from the cloud. And we really feel that this combination is driving the next 3 massive technology trends, which we look at as ubiquitous computing, right? Computing everywhere. people-centered experiences. So we're moving away from when I graduated from college, very business focused, to how do we actually enable people to have experiences that will really improve their lives? And then of course, artificial intelligence, which powers those experiences. And so we look at these pieces coming together as tech intensity. So tech intensity being the outcome of this worldview, harnessing these trends and really driving the next generation of innovation forward. So let's talk a little bit about the Dpg organization. So Dpg stands for Data Platform and Growth. We are a team that focuses on driving key strategic growth initiatives for E+D. E+D is called Experiences and Devices. That's the broader engineering organization that we are in. And our work focuses on both internal customers inside of Microsoft as well as our external customers. So it's a mix of both. So you have probably not heard of Experience and Devices, but you have absolutely used the products that come out of Experience and Devices. So the E+D organization, Experience and Devices, is our goal is to build the very best apps, services, and devices for customers to empower them to do their best work. And so you are probably very familiar with the products that come out of this group. It starts with the products that started Microsoft, Windows, Outlook, Office, and then it moves into all sorts of new and more recent ones, Surface, Teams, as well as a couple of the pieces that you'll hear about later from us. The Dpg organization, it's actually a fairly new organization. So we were founded, I believe it was last year. We are 1,200 people, full-time employees, and we cover 5 core areas. And we are located across 3 of the, actually I won't say 3 continents, 3 areas. So we are in the Americas, we are in EMEA, and we are in APAC. So we are a very, very global organization. Our objectives for the Dpg organization is to drive step change business growth, to create great products and new customer scenarios. So we're working on how do we build new and cool stuff, to create an environment where developers love our M365 product, which they do. We want to just keep getting better at it. And then to create world-class operations for the products that we run. We are deeply, deeply committed to our culture where every person on our team feels safe, included, and valued. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. And then lastly, about the teams. So there are 5 different teams. We are hiring in a couple of these, and you'll meet some people from the teams later on where we are hiring. But the teams are Ideas, Growth and Experience, the Taos team, the Employee Experience team, and the Strategy team. This covers a number of different areas as far as roles. And so we have engineering and product management, which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. Also program management, data science, data analytics, and a strategy team. So a pretty broad range of capabilities as far as what does it take to build product. Next slide, Pete, please. So here are the 5 teams. The employee experience team, that's the team that I'm part of. We are building the Microsoft Viva product, which is focused on employee experience, really focused on shifting the conversation to what does an employee need to be successful in their career? How do we empower employees to do their best and really get the most out of working for any given company? Next, we have the E+D strategy organization. And so this group works, it's part of Dpg, but they actually work across the entire experience and devices organization. And they are working on building the strategy for the next products and the next things we do. So they work on identifying and prioritizing where are the areas that our engineering organizations need to focus on building new products, and creating really a strong thought leadership between us as well as our customers and external forces around where do we think we want to go with products for Microsoft. Next one is Growth and Experience team. They are dedicated to increasing the love for Microsoft 365, focusing on how do we improve deployment, usage, innovation, and making sure we have high customer satisfaction and compliance. The Ideas team is another engineering organization. They have a very cool initiative where they focused on actually looking across not just E+D, but all of Microsoft products and looking at the data. who are we selling to, who's buying them, how are people using our products, and really how can we use those insights to improve our products as well as personalize them. So really looking very broadly, and then how do we leverage that information, the insights we have about Microsoft products, to both improve the customer experience and improve the products. And finally, we have the Taos organization, another engineering organization, and they are working on bringing together vision, strategy, and architecture for implementing a single and coherent platform that allows customers and partners to develop and get the most out of Microsoft. So we have folks from Taos on here who will tell you more, but a lot of it is how do we build once and then and allow things to show up in Microsoft all over the place. Folks may be familiar with Office Hub, which is one of my favorite products. It allows you to then look at what's a file I looked at recently. So, hey, I need to go find something. I looked at it yesterday. I don't remember if I started on my local machine or somebody sent it to me in email or Teams. There's a fabulous app that allows me to say, here's everything that you looked at in the last couple of days, months, etc. That is part of the Taos team. It's one of the first pieces they built, but they're building a lot more as far as how do we leverage Microsoft all up. Next slide. Awesome. So culture. So hopefully you've heard a lot about the Microsoft culture. It certainly has proven to be true. All of the hype has proven to be true as I joined the organization. We focus on 4 areas in culture, and then we have a lot of different activities that then support this. So we focus on learning. How do we grow and develop people on a daily basis? How do we make sure that they have good career growth as well? As I mentioned before, we focus a lot on inclusion. We want to make sure all voices are heard. We focus on retention. So what are the things that really employees are looking for from a company, from an organization, from their career? What is really going to allow them to enjoy their job on a daily basis? And then lastly, we focus on representation. So we're focusing on how do we shift Microsoft to look more like the communities that we are in. And we do this through a lot of different programs. So to start with, we have a monthly inclusion conversation where we talk about how do we make sure we're inclusive across the board. This can include folks from our employee resource groups. Employee resource groups are folks who focus on, folks who focus on creating community for diverse groups. So there are OLA, which is our group who focuses on Hispanic and Latinx, BAM, Black and African American, Glean, there's a women's organization. We also have a focus on folks who come from veterans, et cetera. So on a monthly basis, we get together. Actually, the last month we talked about folks who come from the military and what is their experience like in Microsoft. How can we learn about what their experience is, and both to create a better understanding and also to be more inclusive going forward. We also have a number of wellness initiatives as far as making sure that we are all taking care of our health and being active. So that we can bring our best self to work. Microsoft has a strong leave program and a return program. So if people do have situations going on in their own experience, that we support people through that and make sure that they are able to take the time they need and come back. Some of my favorites, we do a personal development days. So about once a month, we basically do a day that we focuses on how do we develop and grow. It's not about how do we build product. It's about how do we individually as individuals, how do we learn? This could be training, this could be mentoring, this could be group sessions on how do we learn from each other. Couple more. We have employee resource groups. We have 3 inside of DPG specifically, but we have a large number across Microsoft. So the 3 inside of DPG are OLA, Glean, and BAM, which is which I mentioned earlier. We then have ally programs where we're focusing on, maybe I'm not part of a diverse group, but I really want to understand and learn and make sure I'm an inclusive. And so we focus on how can individuals basically support folks from different groups. We have women mentoring circles and a heck of a lot more, but I'm going to stop at that. But as you can see, culture is incredibly important. How people, where people, we dedicate time so that people can focus on learning, growing, learning about each other, making sure that we are really supporting those diversity and inclusion outcomes that we want to get to. So a lot of stuff in this area, but hopefully I've given you a little bit of a taste. So with that, I want to say we are very excited to have you here. We are going to give you more details about the specific groups that we are hiring for, and we really, really hope that this encourages you to apply to jobs at Microsoft, be it in this particular program or in others, and we look forward to getting to know you better.
Janet, let me thank you, first of all, for agreeing to be our keynote. I know you must be very busy, but if it's okay, I'd like to have a couple of follow-up questions just to get to know you a little bit better and sort of a day in the life in your current role, if that's okay.
Sure.
So my first question is, I know you have a computer science background, and now you have, sounds like what a lot of people would consider a dream job at Microsoft. So what is it that drove you to go into computer science, for your education?
I actually had the opportunity when I was pretty young to work with computers. So it was like 4th grade. And I think it was, programming low-res graphics. I'm really telling my age here. I think I wrote like a program to paint a butterfly in a butterfly and a caterpillar. But I really enjoyed it. Like I enjoy the logic. I enjoy the kind of, when you do the work, it's done and it's good. There are lots of occupations. Writing is not something that I'm strong at, in that, like, it's never done. I could keep going and keep going and keep going. But I love with computers, with programs, you build it and you see the results. I also love working with customers. And so I started early on with customers, and I feel that has been a really cool kind of entryway then into deeper engineering places. What I loved about that, and Microsoft focuses on this a lot, is the more we know a customer, the better product we build. And so one of the things that I really enjoyed, both when I was early in my career and then later on, is really getting to know the customers, getting to know how this is going to help them, and then building a product for it. And I'd say the last piece I love is exactly that. It is being able to do something that really impacts lots of people on a daily basis. I started my career deep in the weeds of middleware, and at this point in time, it's incredibly fun to work for an organization where people use our software every day, and we're focusing on how we make it better and better for them every day.
So can you tell a story about how you got your foot in the door at Microsoft? Because like I said, for a lot of people, it's a dream career. So would love to hear how you got your foot in the door.
Yeah, so I joined Microsoft 1.5 years ago. I actually joined in a totally different role than I have right now. I joined in, we call it Microsoft Digital, but it's our IT organization. And so I'd been in the HR space for 10 years. So I built HR products for 10 years. Microsoft uses a bunch of them. I'd worked with huge global companies, including Microsoft and Coca-Cola and American Airlines. And somebody reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in joining IT organization and then being responsible for overseeing those systems for Microsoft? And so I was overseeing the back-end finance systems, our HR systems, professional services, and some of our legal systems. And clearly they found me based on my HR background. But I thought it would just be fascinating. I mean, Microsoft is a huge company, right? I've built software for Microsoft, but what does it mean to actually run it for Microsoft? And so I took an opportunity to join the IT organization. A lot of it was based on my background, but also some of it was based on me being very open to explore an entirely different area. I had never done IT before, and it turned out to be incredibly valuable. I did change roles afterwards, and I'll be honest, it's kind of because Viva and the product we're building is so cool, and building products is really close to my heart. But it was a fabulous opportunity, but it was something that I took a risk on. It was something that I did not have the deep experience IT, but I did have this other very cool experience that was relevant. And I'd say that's something I would always encourage people who are looking at Microsoft, is you bring a lot of value, take some risks as far as what you're interested in working on, because it can be incredibly gratifying.
Awesome. So my favorite question, and probably is going to be a theme for all of our other panelists, so get ready. But my question is, why do you feel Microsoft is a great place to work for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a combination of two things. One, it is, I'm an engineer, it's the tech. We have very, very cool tech. There are, as I build Viva, there is a ton of stuff where I can leverage capabilities that other people in Microsoft have built. And so I can really focus on what's really important to my application. That allows me to go really fast, right? I can build applications much faster because I'm not building some of the nitty-gritty pieces. And just, it's an industry leader from technology. We have Azure, we have the Microsoft M365 products, just really, moving the needle in tech, just so many cool things. And then the second piece is really the culture. I love focusing on growth and development of people in my organization. I love being part of an organization who really thinks about the ethics of what they're doing. That's, technology is hard, and we see this in the news right now. Like it is hard. It is hard to get it right when it comes to, making sure that technology is doing the right thing and not going it down into some very dangerous paths. And so I love that Microsoft has been at the forefront at both talking about that and then helping the industry to move forward with how do we really focus on being ethical and trust. The second piece of that culture is just the people, right? We focus on inclusion. We focus on making sure all voices are heard. It makes a difference when you get up in the morning. It makes a difference when you're excited to go work with your peers versus you feel that it's a I'm missing the word, but kind of a more contentious, a more just not fun organization, right? So I really enjoy the people and I really enjoy the culture. So kind of technology and culture.
Awesome. So Janet, let me thank you for being our keynote. I'll ask you to hang on for our panel discussion a little bit later after I introduce our panelists. But to our candidates, if you have any questions specifically for Janet and her role and some of the information that she shared, please drop those questions in the chat. And then Janet, if you have time, if you could keep an eye on the chat to answer any questions that may come up. Thank you. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce our first panelist, who is Gerardo Bodegas Martinez, Principal Engineering Manager, Data Platform and Growth. So Gerardo, if you're ready.
Hi, Will, how are you doing? Thank you.
Welcome.
So, hi everyone, I'm Gerardo Bodegas Martinez. I'm originally from Mexico, from a small town near the border with Central America, Tapachula, Chiapas, Mexico. I went to college there in Mexico, and from there I was recruited to join Microsoft almost 20 years ago. I have worked in different organizations in Microsoft my entire career. That's one of the benefits of it, is that you never get bored. You can try different technologies, different problems, different products, and it's very easy to move from one product to the next. So I worked first in what is the earlier version of Bing Maps. At that point, it was Street and Trips was the name, and Map Point. Then I stayed with them for 8 years until it became Bing Maps, and we released that product to online. Then I went to Office and worked in OneNote because I was a particular fan of that product, and I wanted to try client apps. And then because of my experience with Bing, they asked me to help with the move to the cloud in Office 365. And again, that's where my, fandom for data analytics started, and the power of using data for decision making and to steer the business. And that's how I joined the organization that I now belong to, Ideas. I am the group engineering manager for the data platform component of Ideas. And we are basically responsible for the foundational aspects of the organization, the data as we collect from the different products, all the products that Jeanette talked about, collecting all that information, doing it in a compliant way that respects our users' privacy, which is a huge challenge. Manage all that efficiently, then provide our engineers with the tooling they need to work with that data, and also kind of provide data governance to all of that for data quality, making sure that only the right people has access to the right data for the right purposes. And also, how do we democratize that information and that data so our data analysts and data science can go ahead and do their magic and discover insights and help us figure out what the next set of opportunities are. So that's it for me.
So can we dive in a little bit into your background, as I'm sure some of our candidates actually probably are from Mexico as well. So what was your path to Microsoft from being, from Mexico and now living in the United States? What was that path to Microsoft?
Yeah, so it's pretty kind of, I was lucky in a sense, I was graduating from college in Mexico, and Microsoft was starting to doing recruiting trips to that university. I remember clearly that they basically had a room in the university doing interviews, and a friend of mine convinced me to go and give it a try. And honestly, to be frank, I didn't want to go because I thought that I wasn't up to the task at that point. But he convinced me, basically say, you know what, it's a great way to learn and just find out what this interviewing for a company like Microsoft is like. So I give it a try, and to my surprise, I got an email 2 days later to invite me to come to Redmond for another round of interviews. Again, same kind of mentality, like these guys, I don't know what they're doing, but they will give it a try, make the trip, came here, interview for a couple of teams, and then 2 weeks later I got an offer. And I didn't even let the person complete the offer over the phone. I just kept saying yes, 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 and that was the end of it.
Awesome. So what was it like to transition physically, or geographically, from Mexico to the Pacific Northwest? And what are some of the things that you like about working there or living there now?
That's a great question. So as you can guess, it was a big change for me. First, I didn't know anybody here. I don't have family even in the United States, anywhere in the United States. I knew very little about Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. I only was aware of the Seattle Supersonics. Okay. That's the only thing I knew about it. So coming here was also a big change, not only because of that, but also because, again, I knew English, but it was my second language, and it was mostly academic. So now I really need to practice and all of that. So it was a big change, but I was very excited about obviously joining a company like Microsoft, giving a good impression and all that. I came here. The interesting thing also is that I joined in springtime, almost close to summer. So the weather was really nice, really green, just beautiful. Very similar to my area in Mexico. It's also very green. I mean, the weather is obviously much hotter in Mexico, but very similar. So it was super excited. And I was like, this is perfect. It's green. There's a lot of lakes, mountains. I love it.
¿Qué onda, Manuel?
But then...
A ver, estoy leyendo lo que mandaste. ¿Lo mandaste, el de Nick?
Sí, lo mandé. Mira, aquí lo encontré. Pero estaba leyendo ahorita, mira, este es el de Nick. Lo mandé a la 1:40.
Okay,
cool. But then, I went to winter, and that's where I discovered the other side of what Seattle has to offer, and that was also a period of adaptation for me to the weather and all that. But again, the region is just beautiful. The people are super friendly because of all the different tech companies around the area is very diverse. So it wasn't as hard. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't as hard for me to then make a number of other friends from different parts of Latin America. And that was also very interesting for me because I get to meet people from Argentina, from Brazil, from Puerto Rico, from a bunch of different areas. And that was fun.
Was that as a part of Ola or was that like pre-Ola?
Thank you. That's another part, really good part of my career here in Microsoft. No, that was before. So when I joined Microsoft, I always felt this sense of gratitude that somebody gave me the chance, gave me the opportunity. So immediately, as soon as I could, I started doing recruiting myself and participating in hiring and all that. And I discovered Ola, who is an internal employee resource group for people from Latin America and Hispanic or Latinx. Everybody's really welcome, but it's mostly people that are interested in learning more about the culture. And now I have the honor of leading the chapter for ideas for Ola. We organize events to build network and let people kind of build a community and feel at home even when you are away from home, and meet other people that share your background as well.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your team. As a principal engineering manager, I'm assuming you have a team of maybe developers under you, or what does your team look like? What's the makeup of your team?
So it's all software engineers. We, like I said before, we are just focusing on kind of like the fundamental aspects of data management. Big data management are very, very large scale. We have, and like Jeanette said, we are a team that is located in multiple regions. So my team specifically has a team here. The vast majority of the team is here, around 15 engineers in Redmond, and we have 30 engineers in China as well. And that's the makeup of the team. We are divided in 6 different teams, mostly working on data onboarding from all the different products that Experience and Devices covers, and then teams that are focused on infrastructure, the tooling and the frameworks that we use to process the data and storage the data. We have another team that is focused on data governance, data quality, privacy, compliance, security. And we have another team that is focused on data democratization through data APIs. So how do we then expose the data to a number of other products and partners, internal, external to Microsoft, that want to tap into the data to power, different scenarios.
Awesome. So my last question for you before I introduce our next panelist is, so I see you've been at Microsoft for 19 years. What is it that you like most about working at Microsoft?
I think I share a lot of the same things that Jeanette mentioned in her keynote. First is the people. From my experience, I thought that Microsoft was going to be filled by this engineers that feel like, they're the greatest thing and they cannot speak to you or things like that. But no, everybody here is super friendly. They are really interested in just being helpful to each other, help everybody just grow. Again, the interest in the entire company, even though we are so big, is about making great products and great experiences. And everybody's focused on that. So no matter the title, no matter what you do, no matter the level of experience, everybody's trying to just work together toward that goal. So the people definitely is one part. And also, again, the fact that I'm never the smartest person in the room. So I always learn. I am always learning. Even after 19 years in Microsoft, there is not a single day that I'm not learning something new. So that's exciting for me. And the other part is, obviously the impact. There is very few companies in the world where your work get to impact hundreds of millions of people around the world. Especially in our organization, you're talking about the most popular products, again, in technology, really. When you're talking about Windows, when you're talking about Office, Edge, all of those, you can just say to your friends or your family, even in Mexico, and they will recognize where you work. And that's a great feeling.
Awesome. Awesome. Gerardo, thank you for being a part of our panel discussion. To our candidates, if you have questions specifically for Gerardo as a principal engineering manager on the data platform and growth team, feel free to drop those questions in the chat. And Gerardo, if you can keep an eye on the chat for any of those questions.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce our next panelist, who is Rekha Nanda, who's a group engineering manager, ideas, programmability, and growth. So Rekha, if you're ready.
Hello.
Greetings, greetings.
Hello. Are you able to see me? I turned my camera on, but I'm not sure.
Not yet, but we can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you. And thanks to all the participants at this conference. It is so good to be able to speak to this group. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity also to be able to share my journey and the work that we are doing in DPG and ideas. So a little bit about me. I'm also a group engineering manager in the ideas team. I'm part of what's called the programmability and growth team. I'm originally from India. I started off as a math major and then went on to get a master's in math and business and math, business, and computer science. My journey in Microsoft has been in various products. I started off in what used to be called the Business Applications Platform, and then went on to work on SharePoint. I worked on, if you ever used SharePoint Search, that I originally coded that many years ago. So it's my little claim to fame. And that was probably the last year that Bill Gates was still in the company, and I got to demo it to him. So it was a high point of my career. And then I went on to work on the ERP products, Dynamics, various product lines within Dynamics. I was leading their ML incubations team. Then I moved on to work on identity. When you log into any of Microsoft products, it goes through that.
Está bien cuando ya cargue, está heavy.
Pause. Okay, and then I moved on to work on blockchain for a little while. And I'm what's called the boomerang. So I left Microsoft for a short time. I went and worked at Amazon, got to explore the outside world, but I liked Microsoft so much that I came straight back. And now I'm with Ideas, and I work on the, like I said, the programmability and growth platforms. And if I were to expand on the work that we do on my team, you heard what Gerardo spoke about is the data platform team. They are our foundational team in Ideas. And my team extends that to be able to use that data and also to power our growth scenarios. And we run the whole gamut of experiences, right from if you ever use the Xbox and you go into Xbox, there's something personalized to your likes and dislikes, the games that are being suggested, for example, or when you go and turn on your Windows machine, that image that you see that comes up every day, that is also personalized to you, and that is powered through our team's intelligence. We also work in the sustainability space where we are providing what's called the sustainability numbers through a sustainability calculator. With the growing popularity of making sure that we take care of our environment and Microsoft's commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030, we are also enabling the Microsoft customers to know how much carbon emissions they are generating, so they can give back to the environment or to find and also to suggest ways in which they can reduce their carbon footprint. We also work all the way up into the most secure air-gapped cloud, where the data that we have is presented for the DoD in a secure manner, which is inaccessible through any other channel. So we work in the complete gamut of spaces. All of this powered through the data, and also we own our own ML platform, which powers this data to make sure that everything we're doing is run run through that BI and intelligence. So that's it about me.
So Rekha, can you talk a little bit about the size of your team and the makeup of your team? What type of talent do you have on your team?
Yes, all our team members are engineers. We do work very closely with our parallel data science team. We have a very large presence here in the Puget Sound area, but we have a team also in India of engineers of about 30 plus engineers. We also have a team in Prague of about 15 engineers that we work with. So we have a pretty diverse set of engineers in different geographic locations.
And what are some of the technologies, like if I'm a candidate and I'm interested in landing an engineering position on your team, what are some of the technologies or skill sets you look for in candidates?
I think most importantly, we're looking for candidates who are able to learn and grow and have strong fundamentals in computer science. Our experience, for those of us who have been working in the industry for a while, we know that a language we learn today is going to be obsolete very quickly. Learning the fundamentals of technology is most important. Ability to translate it into a design and code, and ability to be able to look for all the edge cases, look around corners, and be able to foresee what the next evolution is going to be is what we look for.
And for you, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft?
Well, you know, everything that Janet and Gerardo said resonate a lot with me. The fact that Microsoft has this culture of growing individuals. It's a very employee-centric company. We have a lot of tools and opportunities to evolve. But something that stands out, a lot of other technology companies do this too. Several small and large companies are doing that. But I think Microsoft is very intentional in trying to inculcate that growth. Another aspect which is very personal to me is, I would say, Microsoft's commitment to the social and to society in general. We have a culture of being very generous to give to nonprofit organizations and to help advancement in many areas. Also, the work we are doing with sustainability, it is something that is going to really help the world, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in, and it keeps me very personally motivated at work. It's not just about having a profession, but being a very socially conscious citizen.
Awesome, awesome. So Reka, let me thank you for being one of our panelists. But with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our next panelist. But for our candidates, if you have any questions specifically for Reka as a group engineering manager for ideas, programmability, and growth, please drop those questions in the chat. And then Reka, I'll ask for you to keep an eye on the chat for any questions you might be able to answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so our next panelist is Quentin Mackey, who's a group program manager, employee experience cloud. So Quentin, if you're ready.
I am ready. All right, you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, like the video's kind of playing crazy here. Oh, there we go. I think we got videos. Awesome. All right, thank you, Will, and thanks for inviting me to be a part of this. I said thank you and Janet for inviting me to be a part of this. I know this is very special to me. I always like to talk to groups like this and share my experience, and also share where I can help as well. So like you said, I am a group program manager in Employee Experience Cloud. And I have the distinct pleasure of working with Janet every day. So Janet and I talk multiple times a day. She's one of my peers. So it's great that I get to work with her. Originally from Nassau, Bahamas. And as you can see, my college experience is kind of weird there, right? So coming to the Bahamas and doing school in Canada, right? Like, how did you get there, right? So, I started at University of the Bahamas. At that time, it was called the College of the Bahamas, right? So kind of dating myself. And then went on to the University of Windsor in Canada. And in both places, I studied computer science, right, from that aspect. What my team and I are responsible for, we are in employee experience, like Dan said, we work on the Viva platform, the Viva Employee Experience platform. But my team and I, we are specifically responsible for new modules and opportunities on that platform. So any new products and solutions that are going to be built on what we're going to build and deliver as part of Microsoft. So I want to be very specific about that, right? Because you will see partners deliver some solutions on the platform, but specifically for Microsoft, it's going to be the responsibility of my team. What else can I add? I can say from past roles. So I'm trying to cut off your questions, Will. So I'm listening all the way. So I'm trying to hit all your points. So from past roles that I've had, and how I made my way to Microsoft. So quite a long story, but I'll give you the cliff notes. So I'm going to date myself here. So my first experience with Microsoft, using Microsoft, was back in Windows 3.5. So it's a long time ago, right? And believe it or not, when I was back in Bahamas, I always wanted to work for Microsoft at the time, right? 'Cause at that time, I was more on the IT tech side, but took a route here that's kind of different. So I was in consulting for quite some time before I got into product management. And then I was recruited by Microsoft to join this team, right? So I just joined Microsoft April of this year. So it's a little over 6 months, about 7 months at Microsoft.
Okay. So where do you currently work out of? Like what location?
Oh, so I currently work out of the Seattle area. So I just moved here as well, right? So I joined Microsoft in April and moved from Houston, Texas to the Seattle area in July.
Okay, so your story resonates with me because my family's from Crooked Island. So
okay.
So how was the transition for you specifically to the Pacific Northwest, and like how have you adjusted, and what are some of the things you like about working out of that area?
The transition for me, I guess I want to say fine, but fine in the sense of like, so I was like, so as I was thinking about that, I'm saying, what is going to ask me a question? So I wrote it down, right? And so this is like my 8th move since I've been in the US, right? So I came to the US, I would say about 23 years ago, and this is my 8th move, right? In the center from that aspect. So, I would say my wife and I, more my wife, she's kind of got it down pat, right? On what it takes to make a move and so forth. But I would say of all the different places I've been, I always enjoyed visiting the Pacific Northwest, right? I'm always a big fan of coming to the Portland and Seattle area and being able to live here. Like we're really enjoying it. Love to sound weird from an island boy from the Bahamas, but we're loving the weather, believe it or not, right? Loving the weather, the cool weather, and so forth, and just like the people, and it's just such a diverse area.
So my next question. So I got 2 more questions for you because a lot of folks automatically think when they think Microsoft, they think software engineering opportunities. But there's also opportunities for program managers, technical program managers. So what is a day in the life like for you as a program manager at Microsoft?
So day in the life for me and my team is, as you said, right? So it's not all about engineering, right? Someone's got to do the research, do the requirements, work on the designs for the engineers to build stuff, right? And so that's what my team does, right? So we spend a lot of time working with our fellow folks in design as well as research and talking to customers, right? From that aspect and putting those requirements together for the engineering team, right? So if I had to like break it down in simplest form, right? We are responsible for, the what and the why, where engineering tells us what's the how.
Awesome. And so my last and favorite question for you is, what is it that you like most so far about working at Microsoft?
I would say 3 things I really like most right now working at Microsoft is that there is extremely smart people here at Microsoft. It's like wherever you go, where you have such, and I'm talking just smart, just like in their discipline, like just the discipline of software vendors. I've worked at quite a few software vendors, you can see, and it's like you think only like engineers or product managers or something like that, right? I'm talking about like I'm in the room and having conversations with folks who are like doctors in psychology or doctors in people science, right? And we're talking about how the brain works and stuff like that when we're doing our design, which is like super inspiring for me, right? And it's like, wow, right? These are people we're talking to, who could be like actually saving the world and doing things like with patients, right? And helping us put together products that really truly move people, right? So it's inspiring from that aspect. I would also say the culture here, just to add on to my fellow panelists, the culture here is amazing in the sense that it's a diverse culture. Everyone has the mindset of listening, right? And really try for every voice to be heard, right? From that aspect. Also, what I like about the culture is it's rewarding in the sense of if you have other passions, they support that, right? As far as So like, for example, one of my passions in product, I always wanted to make sure that we bring diversity and inclusion into product making. And I don't mean from a perspective of making sure that we have the right fields for people to, say, for example, like identify their gender, by talking about making sure that when we do research, we're looking at a diverse slate, right? And when we do testing, we have a diverse slate of people testing as well, right? From that aspect. And so very passionate about that. And, I'm working outside of my job. I'm working with groups within the organization, like to try to help bring that to life, right? How do we infuse it and make it more intentional? Not saying we don't do it, we do it, but how do we make it even more intentional, right? Especially now we get into this world of employee experience and making products to support that.
Awesome. So Quentin, let me thank you for being one of our panelists. I'll ask you to hang on for our panel discussion after I introduce our last panelist. And then to our candidates, if you have any questions specifically for Quentin as a program manager, please drop those questions in the chat. And then Quentin, I'll ask you to keep an eye on the chat for any of those questions you might be able to answer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Will.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, so our next speaker is Cesar Guimaras, Principal Software Engineering Manager on Content Platform. So Cesar, if you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Cesar. I'm originally from Brazil. Actually, I joined Microsoft in Brazil 16 years ago. But before that, I had my own software house with a few friends there, and then worked like in one of the biggest telecom companies, working the first like .NET, like I'm not so young, so the first .NET project in that company. That's what made me mad some people from Microsoft, and I joined Microsoft in 16 years ago to work in the only engineering team that we had in Brazil, working Dynamics ERP. 10 years ago, I moved to US, I transferred here. And since then, majority of my time, it's been working actually in new teams, helping to build new teams that are building new services or new products. So I work in Dynamics, help like them brings ERP to the cloud. Then I work like in few what I call startups inside Microsoft, trying to do new services or products. Work in Azure as well, and now I'm here in Dpg working Taos. Basically, what we do in Taos, it is improving and developing new services on the M365 developer platform, so that developers and partners can create new apps on top of like Microsoft 365. And with the result, like the customers, the users of like Microsoft 365, like Office, Teams, Edge, right? They can get most of like the line of business applications, not just applications built by Microsoft, but also by third-party app. So basically, we are trying to improve the development platform. So Microsoft itself can build new apps, but mainly also third-party developers can build that app, and they can live side by side with the benefit of the users that are using our platform.
So for you, so you started off your Microsoft career in Brazil?
Yep.
And then moved to, did you move directly from Brazil to the Pacific Northwest as well?
No, I worked in Microsoft Brazil for 6 years. And then I moved 10 years ago to US, yeah.
And but which location do you work from now?
Now, I mean, since COVID, actually 3 months ago, I realized, so when I moved to US, I moved to Seattle, right? Pacific Northwest, worked there. Now with COVID, because of like some family needs, we're gonna be close off Brazil. So I relocate now to Florida. So I saw a lot of people here from Florida. So 3 months that I'm living here in Florida now.
Nice, nice. So for you particularly, what is it that you like most about working at Microsoft since you've been there for 16 years?
I think it's a lot of people are like touched, at least in some level, on this, some of those things that I'm gonna mention, but they're gonna mention maybe some of the different, like maybe different perspectives. As a software engineer, I'm a geek, I'm very geek actually. So one thing that some of the other friends here mentioned about like the great people, smart people that we met at Microsoft, and it's true. I particularly like to meet people that make history on the computers and in the history of software. That is a lot of people that sometimes you don't remember. It's not like the big names. I'm not just talking about like Bill Gates or that big names. I'm really talking about people that went there and helped to contribute to the paper that like did the TCP IP. And then you cross with this guy one day in the cafeteria, right? So when you went to the lunch, and then, or you can talk with some of those guys, and you have like many of those here at Microsoft, right? So it's not like smart people, but also people that had made history at Microsoft. Even our VP here in Taos, he has 30 years of Microsoft. So he worked in different products inside Office, right? So we kind of can see history and still see pieces of softwares that he wrote when he was a software engineer. I kind of like that cool and learn from them, right? Learn from the history. One other thing that I think that is very beneficial to work here at Microsoft that I really enjoy it is that we can, and I think Gerardo mentioned that, right? We can work with different products, different things without need to move companies. And it's true that maybe some of the big software companies has different areas, but if you think at Microsoft, we have games, we have like operational system, we have cloud, we have right applications like and business applications like Office, we have ERP, and you have games. So when you have search, so basically we can, and I did that, right? I work in ERP, I work in machine learning, I work like in Azure. Now I'm here. 1 year ago, I joined this organization and now doing so. The things that you don't need to lose your network, you don't need to lose your history. The company knows what you do well, and also you know how operate with the company, right? And can keep the network, can keep the friends, and do something completely new. I think that is actually pretty cool.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm going to ask you our first panel question, and I'm going to invite the other Microsoft team members to turn on their video so we can jump into our panel discussion. So let me take down my slides before I ask you this first panel discussion question about culture. But my first question is, do you feel, and this is very interesting because you started at Microsoft in Brazil, but now you've worked at Microsoft for many years now in the States. But have you felt working at Microsoft that you can bring your whole self to work, culturally speaking? So can you be yourself?
Definitely. I think that is actually something that I enjoy, right? So I never felt that need to change anything about my culture. I mean, I have tried to change that a little bit, not because the company, but I mean, my accent is very strong because of the place that I came from, Brazil, but I never had any pressure to change that. People actually, the opposite, make always effort. Since I joined, I had the same experience, Gerardo, right? I mean, I use English, but I mean, it's not the same when you are in Brazil, you use that as a second language, right? But I moved here, need to use that every day. I see people really making effort to understand and pay attention to what I'm saying, right? And keep my culture, keep my beliefs, not just like, so that is something that is pretty cool, right? So we can really be ourselves, right? And use the clothes that represent us and enjoy our time, come to the work and meet people that also had different cultures. And actually it's something that I enjoy, right? Meet people. I mean, I learned a lot about all the cultures as well that I didn't have the chance to learn in Brazil, right? That when I came here and worked on Microsoft and I met people from other countries and also learned about it, and that is awesome.
Awesome, awesome. So thank you. So right about now, what I like to do, we've got about 20 minutes left in our event. So to our candidates, I want you all to take advantage of this time that we have left. If you have questions that you would like for me to ask our panelists, please drop those questions in the chat and I'll do my best to ask those questions to the Microsoft team. But with that being said, I have a few questions lined up to get us started. So this first one I'm going to pose to Janet. As you were, it seems, you joined Microsoft in the midst of the pandemic with COVID-19. So what was it like onboarding and joining Microsoft in that time period? And then how has that kind of affected the way that you work at Microsoft?
It's a really good question. I joined the week that they sent everybody home. So I think within the first year and a half, I've met exactly 6 people in person that I work with. I think the way it changed the way we work is we really need to focus on how do you make those connections and how do you find time to really build your networks and build relationships with with the people you work with. I think of them as coffee, chat, lunchtime, hallway moments. And so really try to think about, how do you create those types of moments over Teams. And it takes time and it takes some really dedicated effort. But I think it's very doable if we focus on it. I had the unique opportunity of my last company. I actually worked, my team was across 8 different countries. And so I was fairly used to, I had an 800-person team, 100 of them were sitting with me, the rest of them were in other countries. And so I'd had a lot of time to kind of build that up. But I think a lot of it is just taking the time, realizing that the 15 minutes that you chat with somebody, that isn't part of meetings is incredibly important. 15 minutes, hour, every once in a while, I have a 2-hour conversation at the end of the day with a couple folks because I really enjoy talking with them. But that's equally as important as what you do on a daily basis, because building those relationships and that trust and knowing about people, knowing what's important to them really helps you do your job.
I'm going to start to take some questions from our candidates that I see in the chat. I see a question from Andres Rojas Sanchez, and that question is for the managers on the panel. Are there any initiatives in your organizations to utilize cloud services like Azure?
We all do. Absolutely. Yes. Every day, all the time.
So I always wonder, working at Microsoft has so many productivity, products, that integrate with Windows. And so is that a thing at Microsoft to utilize Microsoft products? I know there are teams within Microsoft that also create software to be used by Microsoft employees. But what about some of the broad, software suites like Office and things and productivity software?
Well, not only do we use it, it's like, well, I guess what a lot of people don't know is we use the products before you get to use it. And so, we are our own testers of our own products, right? So a lot of times, I would say every time, right? So just even for example, right now, right? Like everything I have on my laptop from a Microsoft perspective, Windows, Office, whatever, is like 2 releases, like which you don't have right now. Right? And so we call them rings, right? So we're all in different rings, trying different versions of the products and so forth, right? And so before it gets to our customers, and so we get to provide feedback from that aspect as well.
Awesome. So let me pose this next question to Rekha or Gerardo, and that is, what advice would you offer candidates that are interviewing with Microsoft to maximize their chances for a good look in an interview?
I can begin, and Gerardo, if you want to join in. I would say prepare for your interviews. We appreciate the preparation, the investment you put into coming to Microsoft. Apart from the excitement of working in this big company, being prepared, investing time is much appreciated. It acts in various ways. You yourself feel confident that you are ready to go. You read and learned and practiced for that skill, as well as when we interview candidates, the prepared candidates, we can see the clear difference. We are interviewing hundreds of candidates every year. All of us here have been in even every on a weekly basis. We're interviewing 3 or 4 candidates. So we can see that investment, and we really appreciate it because we know that when you come into Microsoft, you will have that same level of dedication towards your work. Gerardo, you want to add more?
Yeah. So, and it kind of addresses one of the questions also I see in the chat about tips for candidates that are dealing with pressure and they are nervous. So the point that Rekha is making about preparing helps with that. The other thing I will add and recommend is organize your thoughts. There is no time pressure here. The interviewer is not expecting a response in 5 seconds. Use the time to collect your thoughts, organize how you want to go about it, and that usually helps calm the nerves and for you to perform better. Also, go to the interview thinking that, hey, we want you to succeed. We are there to make sure that you have the best experience interviewing with us, you know? And in a way, you're also interviewing our company, Microsoft. There's a lot of competition out there for talent like yours. So we want to make sure that, you know, you feel comfortable, that you can bring your true self in the session, and you can feel comfortable to deliver, you know, and show your talents. So if you come with that mindset, that may help you relax a little bit.
Can I add one more
Please.
thing?
Please do.
And it's aligned with what like Gerardo talking about. I mean, we really want the candidate to be successful, right? So it is okay to say when you don't know something. It's probably is better for you to be honest on that, because then the interview is going to help you at somehow, right, to get in the decision, instead of sometimes try to kind of like know everything, because that can be sometimes very tricky, right? Because we can feel it when you are interviewing, right? And then can put you in a corner as a candidate that you don't want. So being transparent, you not expect that people know everything, right? At least we can help and conduct, and of course, not giving the answer, right? But it helps the interviewer know how it can continue conducting the interview.
I'm going to add one more to that. When we talk about being prepared, especially if you're interviewing for a product program manager, or if you're interviewing for more senior engineering positions, think about the experience you have and come up with a list of examples that really demonstrate different aspects of your background, right? So think about, if you're an engineer, what's something you've built that's complex? What's something you've built that focuses on performance? What's something you've built that has really interesting UI? What's something in the scalability place, right? So a lot of times we ask these questions and people don't have examples. So when I prep for interviews, I create a list of all the different types of things that I've done, and I have to think about it. Like, it doesn't just come off the top of my head. I'm like, oh, I did something 3 years ago. That's a really good example. And so I prep those so that I can talk to people about them very easily, and I'm not having to think about them in the back of my head. Very important. Similarly, architecture, what are products you've built, but think about good examples that really demonstrate the really awesome work you've done. Because a lot of times I'll finish interviews and I feel bad because I'm like, I don't know if they're good or not, because they were taking a lot of time to kind of think about what's an example, but I know they've done that, right? So take time to prep that, especially for the folks who are a little more senior and the folks who are focusing on program product management.
So I have a open question next, and that is around Microsoft's diversity efforts. So are there any scenarios at work where you've seen the benefits of Microsoft's diversity efforts and the efforts of the ERG? So I'll default this one to Gerardo, because I know you've been a part of the recruitment team. So have you seen any of the results of Microsoft's diversity efforts, you know, at work?
Yeah, we have. And it's very exciting, and it's part of why we are here talking to you guys. There is a concerted effort all around Microsoft around diversity, and it goes beyond hiring. You know, hiring is obviously very important. We want to make sure that we are reaching candidates or misrepresented or underrepresented groups, wherever they are, and we are going to great lengths to achieve that. Also, to create an environment, like I was saying, to the previous question, to create an environment where candidates that come with diverse backgrounds, where English may not be your first language, where you may not feel as comfortable. We are going through a lot of training internal to Microsoft to make sure that we change our approach to interviews. So I saw a comment in the chat about somebody that interviewed with Microsoft before and didn't hear back or something. So just be aware that we are going through a lot of training recently to make sure that we are approaching interviews in a whole different way, not just focus on the technical skills, but also in everything else that person brings to the table. We know that diversity is not just about people's background, but diversity of thought, the culture, the beliefs, all of those things. So we want to really get to know you. and bring that to Microsoft, to our team, so we can actually build better products. So that's a thing that I wanted to highlight as an answer to your question, Will.
Let me add something to that too, as well, for our candidates that are joining. Gerardo just brought up a good point. One of our candidates mentioned that they had interviewed previously with Microsoft, and they didn't hear back or they didn't get the job. But there actually have been several examples of folks that have come to these events that have been hired, but they interviewed multiple times with different teams. And so maybe it wasn't the first interview or the second interview, but maybe it was that third interview where they found the right team and the right timing where they received an offer. And there was one case of a gentleman actually who attended one of our Latinx events. He interviewed in February of last year, and then he started working in February or March of this year, where they liked him in his interview, but the timing just wasn't there for the right role. But once they had it, they reached back out to him, and then he was hired as a result of attending one of these events, to Gerardo's point. So one more question I'd like to ask, and I'll default this one to Janet, but I want to open it up to anyone else that might want to add to the question. And that is, you know, I know you recently joined Microsoft last year. Is there anything that you wish you knew before you started working at Microsoft, now that you do work at Microsoft?
I mean, I don't think there's a lot that I wish. You know, what I was curious about when I joined was the culture going to fit what Microsoft talked about, right? Was the focus on diversity and inclusion, the focus on growing diverse communities, including women, including Hispanic and Latinx? Was that true? And it has been. Like, I have just been very, very, very impressed. Microsoft publishes numbers about D&I, very few companies do that. And they not only publish numbers, they publish numbers on what's happening in engineering. So engineering, product management, et cetera. Because sometimes those numbers can look a lot prettier because you got a lot of people in sales from more diverse backgrounds. And so I think it's really impressive that they are really, you know, putting the lens on themselves, right? How do we improve? So I think that was a piece that I wanted to know that it was going to be true. I want to add just to the conversation that you guys just had. I actually started talking to Microsoft a year before I had a job offer, right? So it very much was that, hey, you're interesting, but we don't really have a fit for you now. And it was a year later that they were like, hey, we got this cool thing that we'd like to talk to you about. So definitely encourage people. Don't be discouraged, right? Sometimes it's about what the team you interviewed with needs at that moment. Sometimes it's about, is there a skill fit? You know, it's a lot of different things, but we do definitely flag candidates that we interview with that, like, hey, this wasn't a fit for me, but we think it's a really interesting candidate. So as I said, as a senior leader, exactly happened to me. It was a, hey, really cool, but we don't have anything right now for you, but Microsoft kept in touch.
Awesome. So that kind of leads into my last question. I want everyone to get a rapid fire response to this question before we talk about next steps for the candidates and close out the event. But that question is, what advice would you have, considering that we have, you know, an audience of diverse and talented candidates that may, you know, a lot of people may be intimidated by Microsoft, the interview process. All of you guys had to go through that interview process and now are gainfully working at Microsoft. What advice would you give our candidates that are considering interviewing and potentially working for Microsoft? So I'll start with Cesar.
I was afraid because I thought that everybody, and it's true, everybody is smart than me, as Gerardo also mentioned, right? But it is still possible. So don't give up. Continue trying, or try for the first time, and you can join us.
Awesome. Gerardo. I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Cesar just stole my answer. I was going to say basically the same thing. You know, we all going through it. We know we have this present when we are interviewing people. Again, we want to make you feel comfortable, and again, we are as interested in you being successful as you are. So just try, you know, push hard. Just try your best to come prepared, to show us what you can bring to the table, you know, and treat it as a conversation that you're having with a friend, you know, about your skills, your background, all that. It's going to be fine. If it doesn't work out, just like Cesar said, try again. You never know. I have friends that interview 7 times because they really wanted to join Microsoft, and now I'm here.
Now they're there. Awesome. Rekha, what advice would you give our candidates?
I would say that you're unique and you're special, and we want you here with us. So don't be afraid to talk to us about what unique skill sets you have, and boast a little bit. It's okay. We'd like to know more about you, so that we can find the right fit for you within the company.
Awesome. Quentin.
I would say three things. Like two have already been said, right? It's like don't give up, be prepared, and the third one I would say is like be confident in what you want, right? I get those when I interview people. I get like, why did you apply, right? And I know sometimes we apply for things we sometimes just want to get in, but be confident in what you want.
Awesome. And I'll give the last word to you, Janet, as our keynote. Any advice?
I think all the good ones have been taken, but I would say definitely focus on being prepared, right? Spend some time, right? If this is something that you really want, spend some time on it. And then the second one is we all get nervous. And so give yourself some time before you do the interviews or in between the interviews, because you'll have times if you're interviewing in between to take a little bit of a break. Step outside for a few minutes, enjoy the sun or the rain if you're in the area. If you meditate, do like a 2-minute close your eyes and breathe, which is what I do. Like I put time before any big meetings where I'm presenting, seriously. But it helps, right? So give yourself some time to relax, so that you're not stressed as much, and bring the awesomeness that is you to the conversation.
Awesome. So that puts us right on time to talk about next steps. So to our candidates, and Jesse, I'll ask if you haven't posted in the chat any next steps or instructions. Let me quickly go over it for our candidates. It's pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to share your resumes with the Microsoft Dpg team. So what you want to do is make sure you submit your latest resume. We should have most of your resumes already, but if you want us to have your latest and greatest resume, please submit it to us tonight or by tomorrow morning, and then we'll share that with Jesse and his team. And the URL that you want to go to, you can either, actually, we're going to send out a follow-up email as well with the link. I'm going to put it in the chat. You'll want to go to https hbcu-connect.com/Microsoft-DPG. You go to that URL, that'll take you to the event form. You can submit your resume. Then we will share your resumes with Jesse and his team. Jesse and his team will actually go through the resumes, share your resumes with the DPG team, and then they will look for opportunities to invite some of you in for phone screens first, potentially interviews, and then hopefully some of you actually get hired from this event. So like I said, you're in the right place. The great opportunity here with Microsoft. And the last thing I like to do at our events, other than to thank the Microsoft team for sharing your wonderful experiences and these wonderful opportunities with our candidates, and to thank our candidates for coming to this event, because without you, of course, we could not host these events and continue to share these great opportunities with diverse communities. So other than thanking you guys, I want to give you the opportunity to turn on your video feed and get a screenshot of all of your smiling faces. Let me make sure, let me exit Spotlight. Yeah, feel free to turn your camera on. I'm going to remove the spotlight on our Microsoft folks so we can try to see the whole gamut of smiling faces. Get a screenshot. Definitely got to say cheese. Let me see here. Only one more spotlight to remove. And let's see here, large gallery. All right, perfect. So everybody, give me a big smile. I appreciate you guys joining us. Like I said, this is definitely a special opportunity. Please follow up with your resumes. But 1, 2, 3, say cheese. All right, thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon wherever you're located. And please take advantage of this awesome opportunity to connect with Microsoft by submitting your resume to us today. Thank you all. Take care. Good evening.
Thank you.